Oppressor, oppressed. Throughout history, there's always been the two. Generally, it's between a tyrant and his people. Perhaps that's the most common phrase, the most dynamic. There's also a slave and a slave master. So, with this, it begs the question, how do we free ourselves from a higher power that is oppressing us? Frederick Douglass says, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. So, when I'm reading this, what I understand is that basically, in order to get something from a certain power, you need to beg, you need to ask something from it. Otherwise, it will never give you what you want. Well, this is something with which I totally disagree. I think that power, if asked, like as obviously like no reason to listen to a demand unless it's something that benefits them, right? So I totally disagree with this. A philosopher from the 14th century, Etienne de la Boétie, wrote an essay about the oppressed and the oppressor, which is called La servitude volontaire. So, voluntary servitude. In his essay, basically, he says that, like, the most powerful tool of the oppressor is the willingness of the oppressed to basically follow him or believe in the force of the oppressor through submission or any other means. Because if you think about it, if the oppressor, if the oppressed did not believe in its force, in the force of the oppressed, believe that the oppressor, if the oppressed believe that the oppressor is weaker than them, smaller than them, less intelligent, all that stuff, how could they be oppressed by them, right? So it's something that really begs the question, and I think that Etienne de la Boétie is right in this case. Like the most powerful tool of the oppressor is the willingness of the oppressed to believe in the power of the oppressor, right? And there's multiple example with this. There's one from a book that I've read a long time ago, which is called Leonis. In Leonis, there's this character. It's in Egypt. There's this character who is a little kid. We don't exactly know his age and all, but he's a slave. He's a slave. He's a small slave uh, to a powerful sorcerer, and this little kid is actually also is the son of her, you can say like sorcerer goddess, and he doesn't know about it. He doesn't know anything about his lineage, his mother, his history, nothing. He doesn't know anything about it. And throughout all of his life, he was always told that he was he was shit, he was nothing, and all. And at some point, he actually believed it because there was nobody else who counter those idea. And that's was actually like the power that was putting him down. Every time that this evil sorcerer was telling him all of these things, he actually believed them. But eventually, he got a hint that all of those things was actually a lie. And slowly but surely, he was able to free himself from the power of that evil sorcerer and eventually become, yeah, a good sorcerer himself. But without all of those thoughts, without freeing himself from these thoughts, he would not have been able to get there, right? So this is the first example that say that disprove the thought that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will, right? Because he didn't ask for it; he just did it, right? Another interesting example, and this is actually could say contradictory, but we have Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass, who actually wrote this quote, but he is a perfect example of why this quote, in my opinion, is totally false, and is the reason of his history, right? Frederick Douglass was a slave. At some point, he didn't know how to read. He didn't know how to read. He started to taught him to teach himself, right? By asking other kids in town to teach him, and slowly but surely he was able to pick it up, to understand the words and all that stuff. And he said, like, later in his life, like, he didn't ask to first of all, he didn't ask like to be taught how to read, because slaves were not allowed to read back then. And at some point, he got away. He got away. He moved away, and there was no ask for this. There was no permission. He just did it. He didn't ask. So I think it's really interesting that we have this quote. Perhaps there's another context for this, which I'm not aware of. But in this case, I think it disproved the idea of Frederick Douglass that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, it never will. I think it's totally false. So, what do you think? Do you think it's true? Do you think it's not true? Let me know what you think. It's Black History Month, so I'll be doing. I'll try to do some quote and sort of like debate speech on this. Um, if you got to this at the end of this video, thank you very much for listening. Like I just got out of the gym, so that's why I'm wearing like this. Yep, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you on the next video.